Plants vs. Zombies is a franchise that I'm sure you've heard of, and if you're Gen Z, you most likely know the game like the back of your hand. And if you're even more in-depth in the franchise, then you may even know the series of Garden Warfare spin-offs. In this video, I'm going to be talking about every Plants vs. Zombies game, with a few exceptions. And it all starts with Plants vs. Zombies 1. Let me tell you, man, this game is amazing, especially the tutorial. The great thing about this tutorial is that it doesn't tell you it's a tutorial. It throws you into combat and somehow you know what to do. You have a plant in the top left and you have a lane of grass. You put the plant on the grass and watch it shoot the zombie. This is the entire game. This is all the gameplay that there is. And it eases you into other mechanics slowly and calmly. Once you beat the wave of zombies, you unlock the sunflower. And it's pretty self-explanatory what it does. Is it gives you your currency, sun, without having to rely on the RNG from the sky. Now, the entire game is practically easing in new mechanics. Until the very end, it's giving you new mechanics. You got the lily pads, the mushrooms, the flower pots, the cacti, certain zombies that can only be killed by certain plants. You got the vault zombies' relationship with the potato mine. You got tons of different mechanics that are eased into. This is what every game strives to be. This is the ideal tutorial. The next game to chronologically release is a crappy Facebook game, which released following the first one's success. This one should not exist. That's all I have to say. The end. Now on to Plants vs. Zombies 2. But before we talk about this one, I need to inform you how EA bought out PopCat. This simple action, well, maybe not simple, this action of $1.2 billion will loom over the rest of the video. It'll be the source of most problems, and I'll chalk up most problems to this event. The opposition between the first two games are apparent. The first game was simplistic. You had some mechanics to learn, but most played off of each other in a very simple manner. Well, in the second one, they did quantity over quality, where they added a ton of plants that no one in their right mind could keep track of. You can't keep track of every property of every plant. And while in the first game you had a one-time purchase of around $5, in this game, the base game's free, but there are $3 plant extensions. You can buy the Snow Pea, which was in your base game, for $3, or the Chomper, or the Torchwood, and a plethora of other plants that were grouped along with the purchase in Plants vs. Zombies 1, chalking up the full game experience to be more than 20 times the price of Plants vs. Zombies 1. It's horrible. It's basically EA. It is EA. EA is stuffing microtransactions. And for some reason, no one ever talked about this, And the problem is that they basically dropped everything that the first game had in place. And this is because EA fired the person who worked on the first game. Plants vs. Zombies was mostly made by one guy, and then after that it was made by 4 guys. Well, 3 guys and 1 woman, basically. But most of those people were artists, musical artist to game developers, which is pretty bad. The Team Fortress community has the exact same problem, where most of the people are artists, and they fired all of those people. That's why the game has lost its soul in this one. It's lost its simplicity. You got a ton of needless mechanics like plant food, and you've got a ton of just mechanics that didn't need to be in. They're innovating just to innovate, and that's a giant problem with newer Plants vs. Zombies games, is they're innovating just to innovate. Now, I would say I wish this game never was created, and I wish the people were never fired so we could get more original Plants vs. Zombies games, but this game is really what blew up Plants vs. Zombies. And while the first one was big, it was big, but this one really skyrocketed and let them, do really whatever they want. Like make a third-person shooter. That would be pretty crazy. Made a AAA third-person shooter, and it's amazing. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 1 was the step stool for the franchise. It let them break out of the tower defense genre for the first time. A plus that I don't see in many team-based games is that each team has a counterpart on the other team. The scientist is a counterpart of the sunflower, the chomper, the all-star, the pea shooter, the foot soldier. And this is game balance at its finest. Is you have two members of each team that play wildly differently but serve the same role overall. And you have great things, great dynamics, like the scientist and the engineer, they're support classes, but they can really play any role. And the one great thing that I find in many games that many people hate is the medic hiding behind the heavy hitter, much like Team Fortress 2. They have the scientist behind the all-star in this one, where I just think that is a great dynamic that most class-based shooters should have. You have Reinhardt and Mercy in Overwatch, and then you have the heavy and medic in Team Fortress 2. And I think this is a great dynamic that is, pretty good that they should have in most class-based shooters. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 1 laid down the groundwork for the next game, and that game being Garden Warfare 2 is the sequel to Garden Warfare 1, and it was better in every way. It felt like Garden Warfare 1 was really just a test if people would like this step outside of the tower defense genre. Garden Warfare 2 is the most creative game in a long while, as it essentially created a new genre. What they did is they mashed platform fighter elements with standard shooter elements, and this is most apparent in the fact of stage control. In platform fighters, stage control is usually, hey, you can place something down here and it'll make sure that your enemy doesn't go there because it'll do some damage. But they did this perfectly in Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 because there were little spots around the map where each team could plant a tiny little plant or a zombie. And in the first game, this was there, but they were more target practice. They didn't really serve a role. But in the second game, each one has its own role. The medic zombie can help the scientist, healing his undead brethren. The TV head zombie could help in ranged battles, and newspaper zombies can apply pressure on the opposing team with his high mobility and high damage output. This game added 3 new fighters to each team also, but I think they're all kind of meh, because they really dropped the counterparts, because, you have the imp on the zombies team, which is much like D.Va from Overwatch, probably, copy-paste D.Va from Overwatch, but you don't really have, a counterpart on the other team. On the other team, they added Rose, which is kind of like Scientist, but, they got more offense. What they really tried to do is draw connections between already existing characters from Garden Warfare 1, and I don't really find a problem with that. I think it's pretty good, because they basically fleshed out subclasses from Garden Warfare 1 and made them entire classes. So I think that was a pretty big plus, The game overall is my favorite game in the franchise, so I may be biased in giving it all this praise, which I won't show praise to anything else in this video, as you'll see. Plants vs. Zombies 3 is the second newest in the Plants vs. Zombies franchise. It's the newest tower defense game in the franchise. The first one in 6 years. But basically, the problem is they dropped everything from the first 2 previous games. If they had Plants vs. Zombies 2, the most I would have is gripes, if they just did Plants vs. Zombies 2 again. But Plants vs. Zombies 3, this is a train wreck. I mean, I really think PobCap was just innovating just to innovate. They're using 3D models this time around, which, that's the hip new thing for mobile app, because your phones can now, they got a lot more power. So now they can take a bunch of 3D models, and it really doesn't look good. This is the first time the game the tower defense games have bursted into the 3D model genre, I guess. It's not really a genre, but the art style of 3D models. Well, besides the game we don't talk about, that one over there. That one's pretty bad. But basically, this looks horrible. Especially, what they did is they meshed aspects from Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, which I'll talk about later, into this one. And the weird thing is, that game is a card game. And it's real weird because they have no sunflowers anymore. So you just have a little meter that fills up and gives you one sun. And it's real weird, and no one really understands it to my knowledge. It's stupid. It's the worst game in the franchise by far. Plants vs. Zombies Heroes released quite close, maybe a week before Plants vs. Zombies 3. And it's basically a Plants vs. Zombies card game. I have really nothing to talk about. It's a Plants vs. Zombies card game. I'm never going to play it. I haven't played it. You'll see it on screen, It's Plants vs. Zombies card game. Everyone's owned it on their phone for a second and then deleted it. Just like TikTok. Everyone deletes it after it's a giant security concern. Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, in my opinion, was the most disappointing in the franchise, because I love Garden Warfare 2, and I was really expecting Garden Warfare 2 remastered practically. I wasn't expecting them to add much new stuff, maybe some new classes, which they did. They added the Mushroom Guy and the Wizard Guy. I don't know their names, but they're the Mushroom Guy and the Wizard Guy, so... But they again are innovating just to innovate. They dropped the system of variants, which was the best thing to retain audiences in a game. You had 100% save files all around the board. Everyone I know has a 100% save file on this game, or everyone I knew had a 100% save file on this game, because no one owns their save file anymore, let's be honest. But practically, they removed that, which is a big L in their book. But they could have replaced it with something. They replaced it with cosmetics. Yeah, EA replaced it with cosmetics. But no microtransactions this time, except the cosmetics are kooky and crazy. My only cosmetic in this game is a chess hat. It makes me look like Zack Scott Games episode 136 with his rainbow jelly chess hat. This game, they're innovating just to innovate. The game runs pretty slow, although it is beautiful. I feel like they're trying to create a new game in the genre. They haven't even said this is connected to Garden Warfare whatsoever, to my knowledge. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to create a new game in the franchise. They're trying to create a new sub-franchise, and which I feel what they're going for here is tactical shooter-esque combat. But what they're going for was done much better by Valorant, but Valorant, don't download it, don't buy it, pretty bad. But they have abilities in a tactical shooter. I really think Battle for Neighborville is still a really, really good game, and I still love it to bits. But it's by far the worst in the three-dimensional shooter, because although it does have some pluses, certain balance changes, the combat is just disgusting. It's Fortnite combat. People jumping around and just seeing who can land more hits. In recent times, I haven't seen them trying to fix it. I've just seen people not doing it anymore because, if you aim and actually use brain cells, then, the combat's a lot more fun and maybe even easier to the kids who are just jumping around. And the problem is PopCap with the Mushroom Man, they made it faster, and sure, I love the ninja characters in most games, but they didn't balance it with low damage. What they did is they had a pea shooter who's fast. They had pea shooters hyper speed always on. And that's a pretty L in my book. All I want to say in this video is, PopCap, if they made a Garden Warfare 2 remaster, which I know they won't because no one ever makes shooter remasters, multiplayer game remasters. But if they do, it's the hip new trend, make remasters. If they do, then it'll be my favorite maybe even video game by far. I love Garden Warfare 2. Definitely top 50 games in my book. That's all I really have to say. Look forward to the next video, hopefully. Tell me in the comments what video you like more. This one, I went for a scripted, laid back tone. The last one was kind of leafy, rant-esque. I kind of went on a rant here, but I'll see you guys later. Deuces.
Off of my head and then eat the brains. I'm the one who planted me